Imagine this. No, don't imagine this. This is something all of us do. I do it as well. Somebody does something to me, and I've already written the story. I've made that person the villain in that story. I've already made that person the reason why everything went wrong. I'm the hero in the story, and that person is the villain. Somebody is late to a meeting, and you've already written why that person was late to a meeting. Somebody did something to you, you've already made it their fault. You've already written the story without even hearing their side of the story. We do this every day. We don't believe in each other, the best in each other. We believe the worst in each other. And, every day you hear people say things about other people that they've not even clarified. And we do it as a human being. I do it as well. But that's what we're going to talk about in part 2 of episode 69 of Reading with Ayo, whereby we're talking about the book, The Sixth Conversation by Holleman. Last week, we started the book and we talked about curiosity as the first mindset. The second mindset is called believing the best. But in episode 1, we talked about curiosity. And what curiosity does is it asks questions, it opens the door. It is the decision to walk into a conversation as a learner instead of an evaluator. You're not evaluating people. You're learning from other people. You're replacing assumptions with questions. You're asking about that person's journey, not just labeling that person. To stay in the conversation long enough, the other person stops performing and starts being real. That's what curiosity does. It helps the person become their real person. Curiosity opens the door, but there is this thing. Once that door is open, you are now standing in front of the real human being. There's flaws, there's contradictions, there's history, and there's all the other things that come with that human being. And the second you start to see them, your brain starts to do something almost automatic. It starts telling itself a story about that person, about what they meant to, where they meant by that comment, about what they showed up, why they showed up late, about what you really think about them. Let me do this. Let me paste the analogy for you. You really wanted to work for this boss and you really liked her and she gave you the job and everything like that, or you got the job. And now you get the job, you're close to that person, you start seeing the person's flaw, you start writing a different story about that person. That's where today's mindset is. Is the mindset of believing the best in everything. I'm going to tell you a quick story. It's my story, right? There's this girl I was dating back when I was in high school, right, in Nigeria. And, from my house to her house, like 1.5 hours drive. So I wasn't driving at that time, but I could take a cab or take a bus or take a cab. So that day, I actually took a cab, and I told her I was going to be there at a particular time. I was dressed, I was sharp looking. I got in a cab. On our way, I was on the Third Mainland Bridge. If you've ever been to Lagos and you've been on the Third Mainland Bridge, it's a very long bridge, right? And it's a bridge that's moving. It's just like I-10 if you're in Houston. So, the bridge was moving and the car stopped. And there's no mechanic around. There's nobody to come fix the car, and we stayed there for almost 2 hours before I could get another form of vehicle to take me to where this girl is. By the time I got there, she already was pissed. She didn't even think about it. We didn't go for the date. That was the end of our relationship because she thought I was late and I disrespected her. She wrote that story in her mindset. She didn't even think about what had happened to me that would have made me late. I've never been late to a date. I've never been late to anything we've done before. And that is what believing in the best is. What if she had thought about it in a different way? What if I just never been late? Why is it late? What if she asked me, why was I late? And I could have explained to her. We got to meet years later, and I told her what I went through. And she was like, I'm sorry. And I'm not going to say this because of what happened to me, but this is what happens to all of us every day. We always have that mindset of believing the worst in others or writing the person as a villain in our story, right? But Holleman calls the second mindset believing the best. And believing the best is what it is, as simple as this. Believe in the best in others. It sounds easy, but it's harder than it sounds. If curiosity is what you do with questions, believing the best is what you do with interpretations. You interpret things in a very positive way. It's the discipline of choosing the most generous, most charitable, and most human reading of what just happened. You give the person the benefit of a doubt. You assume positive intent. Even when you do not have to, especially when you do not have to, you believe positive intent. You say, hey, no, that person meant well. And that's something my grandma used to tell me, like, whenever we have discussion around trust, my grandma would say, I choose to trust people first. I don't know why it's worked for her. She believes to trust people first until they mess up. Then she has a change of mindset. She believes everybody should be given a trust to do that. And what does believing in the best is, right? Believing the best is not you being naive. It's not pretending people never do harm or never have bad motives. It is something more deliberate. It's a mindset. It's a thing you change. It's a practice of withholding your verdict long enough, being enough to ask, what is the kindest plausible explanation for this? What would change if I started there instead of where my brain wants to go, right? Our brain wants to go back to like, nah, that person did me wrong. What if I could have a change of mindset and say, no, this is not what that means. This is what this means. This is not what happened. This could be what happened. If we could tell a better story about each other, we would have better conversation. And that's what Holleman is saying. It's like, this quiet truth about human beings, most people are not villains. Most people don't want to be villains. And the co-worker who interrupted you in the meeting did not wake up planning to disrespect you. The family member who forgot something that's really important to you didn't do it on purpose. The friend who has gone quiet in a long time is probably going through their own stuff. The person that that he jumped in front of you, on the highway, is probably going somewhere so important. Maybe a child is in the hospital or something is happening that he needed to do that. Right. Most of the offense we feel in a given week is built on story we've wrote in our head without any evidence. So why does it matter to believe in the best in others, right? There are three things that she talked about. Is you stop preloading conversation with suspicion. Everybody asks, when somebody comes to you, you feel suspect. Does this person want something? He wants to gain something from me. People can feel it when you already made up your mind about them. They retreat. They don't want to have a great conversation because they see your eyes judging them. They see your actions, your body language judging them. You free yourself. Also, the second thing is you free yourself from the exhausting work of grievance, right? When you're always looking for something wrong, when you're always looking for like, is this person going to do this? Is that person going to do this? What did that person mean? And the thing that goes on in our brain, the way we play it, and it's like, you free yourself from it when you believe in the best. You stop carrying the worst case scenario about someone. And when you do that, when you carry that worst case scenario about someone or something, it becomes a burden on you. But if you free it and let it go and believe the best, you can, it will free you, whether you know it or not. And the last one is you give the other person room to actually become their best self. You give that person an opportunity when they see that you believe in them, you trust them, you tend not to come with suspicion or with a baggage or something. People actually feel free around you. People tend to rise towards how they are seen, right? So they have better conversations. And how do you practice this, right? Catch the story. When that thing starts playing in your head, no, rewrite it, catch it and rewrite it. When you feel a flash of frustration, pause and notice what you've told yourself and about that other person. Then rewrite a second story. Force yourself to draft a kinder explanation. Even if you do not believe it, the point is to disrupt the first one. Take the first one out of it, write a second story. Ask before you assume. Asking questions is all about curiosity as well, but it also is about believing yourself. If the matter goes like this, hey, when you said that, I want to make sure I understood you right. Is this what you meant before ask that question. Is this what you meant? Is this hey, why did you forget my birthday? And the person can tell you, or why did you do this? Instead of thinking through it in a making that person villain in your story. And also notice the gap between behavior and identity, right? Someone doing a frustrating thing is not the same as someone being a frustrating person, right? And I think some people always do that. Some people are not what you tag them to be or what you label them to be, because somebody did this something once doesn't make that person, right? Doesn't make that person a frustrating person because they did one frustrating thing. That might be out of character for once, and they just felt like, oh, they did that thing at that time, not even knowing how it's going to impact you. When it all breaks down, right, is that doesn't mean believing in the best is not a license to ignore patterns. If somebody's doing something frequently over and over again, they're not trustworthy and you don't feel safe around them, the answer is not to keep yourself telling a kind of story. The answer is to set a boundary and set the situation and make sure that you have the right situation. And at that time, you have the right not to believe the best, to write the right story, but give the person an opportunity to show the pattern. Believing the best is for everyday slights. The misread tones, the forgotten reply, the moment of friction. It's the muscle that keeps small things from turning into a wall. So let's make sure that when you're doing this, make sure that you also protect yourself. But also when you're protecting yourself, don't make it feel like I have to protect myself all the time. Make sure you know what you're saying and you've written the right story in your head as well. So notice how curiosity and believing are the best together. They work together. Curiosity asks a question. Believing that the best chooses what to do with the answer. One without the other does not work. You have to be curious and you have to make sure that you believe in the best, because both work together as an opportunity for you to have better conversation. Generous interpretations without curiosity is just guessing. Holding both is when a conversation starts to feel like home for the other person. This week practice, I want to ask you, think of one person in your life right now where you are carrying a story you have not tested. Maybe you have decided they are dismissive or thoughtless or competitive or distant. Try this. Write down the most generous version of the same story. Read it back. Then either let the kind of story stand or have the conversation that will actually settle it. So I know we've talked about curiosity. We've talked about believing your best. Part 3, we're going to talk about expressing concern for others. And in that episode, I think it's going to be really cool. So listen for that episode next week. Thank you, and and I'll see you another episode of Reading with Ayo. Thank you. Take care.